Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Clyde Sharati at Africa Media Australia, and on this edition of African Knowledge Tonight, we'll be talking about health. Health is very important, especially in the times that we're living with all this COVID thing happening everywhere in the world. In Australia, we're in a lockdown, both in Melbourne and in Sydney, and we just got another 3 weeks extension. Not like we want that extension. It's not like at uni when you haven't finished your work and you ask for an extension and you are excited when you get it. Here in Melbourne, the 3 weeks extension is for the lockdown. That means we're not really free yet to move as we would like to move because COVID is still happening. Anyway, there's a lot of things about COVID. I don't want to bother you with more COVID because it's everywhere in the media. Today we talk about health in general, especially as it applies to migrants and refugees community, because apparently there are health inequalities that are necessarily linked to migrant and refugees. When you leave your country and go to another country, there are factors that contribute to your health, and most of the time these factors actually can affect you negatively, and it's important to have a look at those health inequalities, to look at the structural causes and individual causes and any other factors that is contributing to that. And to discuss this important topic, I have with me today Mabor Chadol, who is a director of the Center for Refugee and Migrant Health, or Center for Migrant and Refugee Health, to call it properly. That's the official name. And Mabor, how are you today? Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
the sound wasn't on there. Go ahead. Yes. How are you today?
I'm doing good, Clyde. How are you
Oh,
doing?
good, good, good. Thank you. Still surviving even in the midst of this COVID thing. So that's good. We don't know how long we'll survive, but we're still hanging on. How about you?
So I've been in lockdown. I've been inside now since morning. When I wake up in the morning, haven't gone out in
Yeah,
my small office, trying to do different things to please myself and to please whoever that is working with me online. Yeah,
yeah.
it's hard. It's hard life anyway. But what do we do? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We haven't got much of a choice. So it is what it is. We're trying to hang on as much as we can. All right.
Yes.
So before we go into your area of expertise, let's just talk about you as a person. You are from a South Sudanese background. You came to Australia many, many years ago. Tell us a little bit about your journey into Australia.
Yes. Thank you for having me on tonight, Clyde. It's a pleasure to be with you here. And I thought I would just want to acknowledge first, the great work that you're doing for the community. I've seen people attending your session, and I thought it could be one of the opportunities to come and talk about what I think is the best for the community. But thank you for inviting me anyway. My name is Mabor, and I think like any other refugee, and I know people don't like be called by the name refugee, but there's a foundation to which we came to Australia. My journey has a lot of complexities. I've been in refugee camp for almost 10 years. Then I migrated to Australia in 2006. There from, up to now, I have almost 14 years in Australia. And there are a lot of complexities, to which when I came to Australia, being a refugee, of course, there are a lot of, factors that affect us, to come to Australia. And of course, we shouldn't assume that Australia is only a place that you can just seek a comfort. It's a place that you have to come and work hard to make sure that you achieve what you want. So when I arrived to Australia, I came and went to school. I studied my bachelor's and went on, did my two masters, one in public health and one in clinical epidemiology in medicine from Sydney Uni. But yeah, I thought maybe it was an opportunity to explore. Being in Australia actually is a great thing. It's something that one could try to exploit hard and make sure that you get something that you want and to be able to help other people. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. All right. So you studied health public health or something? Is that what led you
Yeah,
to?
I did masters in public health and
Yeah,
did another masters in clinical epidemiology. So
yeah.
so basically now I'm doing partly now I've been a research officer doing some work for some time now, and I thought maybe something good that I'm doing here.
Absolutely. Now, what led you to, I suppose you're the founder or one of the founders of the Center for Migrant and Health, Migrant and Refugee Health. What led you to establish this organization?
Well, there are a lot of factors that led to establishment of Center for Migrant and Refugee Health. Since when I came to Australia, as I told you before, that many of us assume that when you come to Western world, then you seek a comfort. That's not the way it is. When I came to Australia, I went to school, began to see my community, what is happening within the African community and other communities that have been here for some time. For the last 10 years, I've been working with the Sudanese Mothers Coalition. I comprise of mothers and young people. And what it is that they do actually is that there are a lot of moral issues, there are a lot of issues that are happening within the community, both young and the parents. I took my own observation and see what will happen in the next 10 years and what's happening now. Will what's happening now determine the future? And I saw the causation between our present in Australia since when we came here and to the future. So what I saw is that we had a lot of issues, of course. One of the issues that I've singled out was the mental health. And coming to Australia healthcare system, I've also examined on how the system works. The system treats more of symptoms and disease itself, but they don't look at causation. Then I had to go down and look, okay, yes, of course, in evidence-based medicine or any other research that has been done, there are no single social determinant of health that determine mental health of individual or population. But combination of several factors, being age, education, occupation, could quantify, how the health outcome, mental health outcome could result in a population or individual level. So I saw this, that, given the fact that we came to Australia, people are working, most of us don't have work, there's a lot of discrimination. There are a lot of even social issues back at home and even here in Australia. You find that, our people are having a lot of things that they may develop in a long time to come. So I thought maybe it would be one of the opportunities, because we are in Australia, of course. It's prerogative of us now to make sure that we at least try to be ourselves, try to make sure that we initiate, programs or projects that help our own people and ourselves. So I thought of it and I say, okay, why can't I just try, to establish an organization that would help and advocate on behalf of our own people, not only South Sudanese, but all Africans, and even including other Australians. But I found it, quite beneficial, because I already have a lot of contacts with people. People call me, they donate a lot of materials. We have a lot of books. Yesterday, one of the hotels just knocked the door and said that, we just want to deliver super set to you so that you put them within the center. I received about 9 sets of those super sets. That was a huge contribution. And I think with that, actually, without that initiative, anyone in Australia would have not even thought of this, to give me such help. So I thought maybe I'm taking a good direction, given the initiative that I've taken, but it will sink into mind of people as people go on and understand actually what we do best for our community. Thank you.
Okay, and well, given what you've been doing and what you've studied, can you tell us what are some of the main factors that affect people's health, the social determinants or whatever determinant of health for the group of population that we call migrant and refugees? Tell us a little bit more about that so that we get a little more enlightened as to how our health as migrant or refugees are being affected.
Well, I think, as I said before, there are a lot of social determinant of health that you can talk about, but given our time, first of all, I would just want to describe social determinant of health. It's about circumstances in which people grow, live, work, and the age of the people, the system of health, the system of government that we're in, that also shared by the political, social, and economic forces. There's a definition by World Health Organization. When you look at social determinant of health, you look at them at different levels. One, you look at the environmental level where people live and grow. Look at the institutional level, at the government level. Now, to classify social determinant of health, we have a lot of framework that people use. But in my case, actually, I adopt one of the framework is World Health Organization framework that look at the structural determinants and intermediary determinants. When you look at the structural determinant, then you look at the economic, socio-economics and political context, which classify the government's policies and the values of those policies, how they affect people. For example, when we talk about unequal distribution of materials and monetary resources, that come down to how people are employed in the system. Now, I think people have been complaining a lot that there's a huge unemployment within certain group or certain population. That come down to unequal distribution of material and monetary resources. Now, looking at socioeconomic position within the society or the community, then you look at the education, you look at the gender, look at the ethnicity, look at social class, and also you can look at the level of income that one would have that would expose you to vulnerability or isolation within the community. Now, at looking at the intermediary determinant of health, then you look at the material circumstances. You can also look at social, psychosocial factors, behavioral, biological factors that come down to age. And those in combine, the intersect is how do we play this in terms of social cohesion and social capital within the society. So the health system also dictates when we don't have better access to health, then there's a complexity. For example, like what we address actually about the advocacy within mental health, we are looking at how would a normal person from the village in South Sudan come to Australia, assess a number from the website to call a suicide line, call a line that can give you some counseling. Mental health of course is taboo, but not until we try to reinforce a system that at least accept the cultures of others, norms, and religious beliefs, will not have a better health system that is quite inclusive and that's quite equal to everyone. Yeah.
Now, obviously, I understand that, as you said, there are a lot of factors that could affect someone's health. Now, let's try to sort of translate that sort of academic language into simple language for the men out there. You've just mentioned the example of a South Sudanese person coming from, rural South Sudan into metropolitan Australia, which is an incredible amount of change, and it will take them a lot of time to understand the system and be able to navigate through it in general, and that also applies for their health. So if we're trying to translate all these social determinants of health into a very simple language that such a person needs to understand, what would you tell them? That their health is affected by what?
Well, if I just put in a simple language, for example, I will just take a good example about education or occupation and the level of income that we get in this country. So for some of people that came into this country, some of us came when they're older, the middle age. It would not be possible actually to take responsibilities of you having a family and going to school. It takes, many people to go to English school and be able to learn and speak English. That dictate the type of occupation that you can get in this country in terms of employment. And then when it dictates the occupation, then it also dictates the level of income that you get. That means you will never be either middle class or maybe upper class level. That will go down, actually become vulnerable in terms of the level of income that you get and how much you spend outside. That itself are social determinants, three of them actually, that can dictate most of us. I've talked about the age and gender. You know, looking at the age of the people, some people are better old and they're not well educated. That also dictates. The gender itself, actually, in this country, we have many things, to do with the gender. You know, somehow those things affect people. Like our mothers that came as older people here, they also have issues. And when you have level of income that is quite low, basically that will affect your relationship within the family, or maybe the people themselves that are living with you, or maybe to try to support either here or back at home.
Okay. Well, that's very good. So I understand basically we're telling this uh, hypothetical person that your health is affected primarily by how much money you make, what sort of age, what age you are, and what gender you are, and these are some of the things that affect your health. There may be many others, but these are big things, because how much money you make, it means also that maybe you work the sort of job that you do, maybe could be too hard. Some of them may be even unsafe to some extent, and the fact that I suppose all these things have also to do with the level of stress. And I want to talk about stress a little bit, because I think another element that contribute to people's health is stress, which can come from a variety of sources. Okay, can you tell us a little bit about that? And I don't know if that's medical sort of thing, or it also goes into that analysis of health inequalities.
Yeah, I think if people talk about the stress, uh, many of us, all of us, each day we can suffer from stress. Uh, Stress is anything that may come, interfere with your own feeling, and then when your feeling is interfered with, then you feel bad about that circumstance that I, even if it may pass, then you would have had stress from there. So it depends on how long you've been stressed, that will actually dictate your feeling and perception toward other people. So,
Mm,
for example, today when they announced that they would extend, you know, the lockdown, I
mm.
would guess there are a lot of people that have got annoyed about the extension.
Well, I am
So I
one of
would
them.
guess, yeah, yeah, I would guess actually 95% or 99% of our population within Victoria are quite stressful. It depends on circumstances and how you feel at that time. It could go on to develop some other symptoms that could further go and affect your life in terms of mental health and
Yeah.
mental illness that you may have as a result of stress.
Okay. Now, mental health is one thing, and just sort of general health is another. What are some of the health issues that, I mean, are there any sort of common health issues that migrants do suffer? Migrant and refugees, the sort of people that you deal with. Can you name a few health issues that they face?
Well, as a result, I would just try to stem it from uh, how stress may affect people sometime, or how a thinking of individual would affect a person's life. I we don't have a core statistic that actually tell how many migrants are suffering from different diseases in this country. But from the observation point of view, I think one of the things that is affecting people in this country is mental health. Now, when you are affected mentally, then you develop some of the symptoms. We have a lot of, in my case, in what I've observed mostly, we have a lot of people that are quite, suffering from, communicable diseases or non-communicable diseases, including cancer due to smoking, due to eating or health style that we face in this country, or drinking a lot of alcohol, as some of the factors that affect people. We have seen also we have a lot of diseases, including diabetes and blood pressure, that come as a result of stress. Individually, I have a good observation that I see, although I don't attend people at the medical level as a GP, but I know what it is that may affect the health of a person, and through observation, we will observe. A lot of people are complaining. They have diabetes, or of course, they don't see it as a disease that is killer, because at their own knowledge, where they come from, actually, they take such disease as a simple thing. We have a lot of people that are suffering from high blood pressure, and those could result into a lot of issues. We have also seen at the level of reproductive system, there are many people actually that had a lot of issues to do with birthing. For example, a lot of abortion. You see a lot of abortion going on within migrant communities, especially those who have just come recently, South Sudanese and other Africans. And that could be as a result of stress, or as a result of other factors, underlying factors that some of us may not know until we have some research that indicate that certain group is suffering from such. But of course, these are things that are obvious, and we do hear a story from one person to another.
Absolutely. Let me just mention to those who are watching, and I can see John Colley. Thank you very much. I know you're a regular viewer and contributor to the show. Thank you for that, and reminding everyone else watching, you're watching African Knowledge here on Africa Media Australia. We're talking with Mabor Chadol, who is a director of Center for Migrant and Refugee Health, and we're talking about health inequalities and health issues affecting migrant and refugees in general, and African Australians in particular. Mabor, you mentioned cancer there, and that's a topic that I'm actually quite interested in, because I remember about a year or so ago, I wrote an article on AMA, and in that article, I was sort of sharing my thoughts on this whole issue about so many people, so many African Australians dying of cancer, because although I haven't seen any sort of scientific evidence or data in relation to this, but anecdotal evidence, at least from my own personal life, has indicated to me almost 90% of the people that I knew since I've arrived in Australia a little over 22 years ago, many of the people that have died, they've all died of cancer, including even young people. So I see cancer as a very serious problem for African Australians. And from Africa, many of us think that cancer is a disease of the white people. It doesn't affect us, and that's totally wrong, because things have changed. If it was in the past, maybe, but now not anymore. Can you talk a little bit? I know you may not be a specialist in this sort of disease, but from your perspective as a public health sort of expert, can you say anything in relation to this? What do you know about this cancer thing affecting African Australians?
Yes, Clyde, thank you very much for asking that question. I think what we need to note here, there's high prevalence of cancer within the African community, and that comes as a result of lifestyle, health lifestyle in this country. Because, when we came from Africa or from other region that we came from to Australia, I think in terms of what we eat and what we do, exercise and what we drink actually are totally different from what we get here in Australia. Our lifestyle totally changed. But it's only take only wise person that is careful about his health or her health to ensure that you be careful of what you do. The frequency of cancer actually is biological. It could be genetic sometimes. It could be as a result of lifestyle, that you're exposed to. Environmentally, some of us were living in temperate area. By temperate area, the hot regions. We tend to take a lot of fats, a lot of salt. Energy intakes. The energy intakes, the energy that we use, to live in such environment. When we came to Australia, yes, Australia is quite hot. It's a bit hot sometimes. It's cold, depending on the season, I mean. But coming to these seasons, you find the fed accumulation and the lifestyle that we are trying to get exposed here in Australia is totally different, and that actually expose us to different diseases, including cancers and diabetes and even blood pressure, just because of the lifestyle. Where we don't have any evidence that show at the research level or maybe anecdotal, data that is present now that indicate, certain group is suffering from this. But again, we do feel from each and every family, every year we have people that are dying from cancers, in this country. There are several types of cancers, but it comes down to a living style, environmentally. How do we get exposed to this country here in terms of what we eat and what we do, health-wise?
Mm, mm. Well, and do you think the government is fully aware of these specific health issues affecting African Australians? Because that's the topic that you obviously deal with. You may help other migrant and refugees, but we're talking about African Australians. Do you think the government, at all levels, federal, state, and local, we know that it's the state government that normally deals with the health issues in the Australian system, but does the government overall understand fully, and do they do what they're supposed to do to help migrants and refugees address these issues that you've highlighted?
Yes, the government is very aware because, of course, they're the one in charge of the system. They're aware
Well, they
who
may
is
be part
suffering
of
from
the
this.
system, but they may not necessarily know.
Yeah, but again, it come down to advocacy. How do we advocate as
Yeah.
a community? How do we say things that government would undermine sometime? You know, Now in Australia, in Victoria especially, if we go out and begin to tell them, what is going on within our communities, we begin to realize there are a lot of cancer cases that are coming up. It comes to inequity that we're talking about that I put in the website. Actually, other people don't understand sometimes. But the level of inequity, access to healthcare system in this country is totally different. The resources are not equally distributed. Not all of us have resources. Cancers has level of treatment. So the level where you may have a cancer, you are not employed, you are somebody of a lower level in the system in terms of income that you get. You may not access, the level of treatment that somebody has million of money in this country would access. That come down to distributing resources in terms of employment and occupation. So the government may be aware of it, but a level of health system would be different people that would assess the system of health in this country, be able to have a better treatment for cancers. Some of us get, just basic treatment that may not take you anywhere. But if you want to assess, better treatment, then you may have, healthcare insurance that may help you to be able to get a better treatment for cancer in this country, or get a better, management system for your disease, any disease that you are suffering from. So it goes down to money. Government may be aware, but again, it's not up to them actually to be able to treat you in all level of disease that you've gone through. There are things that sometimes they may not afford to treat you through. But again, they're trying a lot to ensure that each and everyone has access health care system in this country.
Yeah, I know. In Australia, we do have quite a good healthcare system, and that's one of the advantages of living in a country such as this one. However, there are a lot of people who may be falling through the cracks, and I understand obviously that there are certain things that the government ought to be able to do to help manage the population health, but there's also a lot of responsibility on individuals themselves and families and communities. You mentioned advocacy, because we ought to be able to advocate, to tell the government about some of these issues that are happening in our communities, so that eventually we can not only let them know, but work with them to try to address that. Do you think that as a community, the African Australian community is doing proper advocacy role when it comes to health issues?
Well, I may not say that Africans are not doing, a good advocacy, but we would even say at the level of how we interact within the community or the system itself. Now, there's a complaint from health providers, that people don't access services, yet people complain. I think this has been going on for almost 10 years or so since when I came to this country. But, it could go down to the knowledge that they have about the services that are available within this country. By the time when I tried to establish Center for Migrant Refugee Health, I do a bit of research. I found out, there are a lot of services that are outside there that some of us could access and get, good treatment. But again, the community is quite, I don't know, quite isolated that, they don't access them. So it comes down to two levels here. One level is to advocate at the community level, have education session, campaign awareness of the services that we have. Like Beyond Blue is giving a lot of mental health services. We have Foundation House that is almost working with all the migrants. That these are services that are available for you, and you need to assess them should you have any mental health. We could go as far as telling them that the other services, like recently actually, we've been in partnership with Peter Marks, one of the highest institution of the cancer, within Australia, all over the world. I got connected. I began to talk about, social determinant of health in terms of health literacy. That some of us, in terms of communication, they don't actually understand what cancer is and what factors does, cause cancer, the causation effect. So, they were inclined to work with us. Up to now, we're in contact. It's because of COVID-19. They're inclined to work with us, and they were very happy that, the way that we've reached out to them to ensure that, we also assess their services, we also hear from them. How would our population actually be able to understand the job that they do, service that they provide? That's one term advocacy that you can do at the community level. Then going up, talking with the government or other institutions that provide services. Yeah, in terms of African, whether or not they're doing better advocacy, yes, there are a lot of people that are trying outside there. I could see people, trying. At the justice level, we have organizations that are well established, talking about the youth crime, how they will be protected, how they will understand the law in this country. We have other people that are working, social work and other organizations that are quite important outside, supporting mothers and young people that are quite vulnerable. We have other organizations that are actually working with the government, both service providers and the community. Africans are doing good, but again, it's time that we have to come in terms of how do we partner, how do we have partnership, so that we will have better collaboration and networking, and be able to find out a lot of issues that are within our community, so that we stand up as one voice. Have our own research institutions or maybe organization that could at least try to record evidence that will tell that this one thing that we are suffering, because the government actually believe in evidence-based information. When you don't have evidence-based data, then there's no way that you should claim something is at least affecting you. It's high time that Africans, that they are doing good things separately or in isolation, but if they come together, regardless whether or not they serve different organizations, but that unit of partnership is quite very important, so that people have to collaborate in areas of importance. Now, I'm doing mental health, somebody may do something different, but if we come and collaborate, then we'll be able actually to leverage our community, have some data that is quite representative of our own population, and then be able, give it to government and present to them that, this is what is affecting us. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. We're going to be taking a break. Just to give you time maybe to even get a glass of water, and for you watching as well, do the same, get something to drink, and we'll come back in about 30 seconds. And when we come back, we'll be taking some questions from the public. So
thank you.
Okay, we're back and we're talking health inequalities. We're talking migrant and refugee health issues. We know that obviously at this time with COVID and everything that is happening, it's a very important issue because we need to make sure we can protect ourselves from any of the disease that may pose a threat for our lives, and we can also take the necessary action to prevent ourselves from falling victim to any disease. And our guest is Mabor, who is executive director of Center for Migrant and Refugee Health. Now, one of the things we've been talking about is, for example, issues of diseases such as cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure. These are diseases that are becoming quite prevalent in African Australian communities. And, the issue, for example, of cancer is one that needs to be given particular attention because a lot of people, a lot of Africans are dying of cancer. And these beliefs that many of us have harbored for many years that Africans are not affected by cancer is obviously wrong, and we need to be able to take action. And that's actually even the same in the US, for example, where cancer is also killing a lot of Africans. Now, in general, cancer is one of the diseases that kills many people. Really, in Australia, I think is the second after heart disease. But we're seeing a rise in people within African Australian communities who are dying of cancer. And that's something that we need to look at to see who we have in our communities who will take up this cause to liaise with the government, to liaise with all institutions who deal with this issue from the mainstream society and bring education, bring knowledge, bring awareness so that people know what to do to minimize chance of them falling victims of these diseases. And that is very important. So I've got Mabor with me, and Mabor, we're going to take a few questions and comments. I've got one from John who says, social determinants of health, as described by the UN, are factors that impact on people's health and well-being throughout their lives. Yet research evidence identifies migrant paradox, enabling them to exhibit better health than the local Australians. We also know that most migrants are very resilient, allowing them to thrive and do well here. What is your take on this? So even though there are these issues that affect migrants and refugees, but apparently, as John is pointing, a lot of us are still enjoying quite good health, probably even better than some of the people who've lived in Australia. How do you explain that?
Thank you. Thank you, Clyde. I think so. When you talk about health, there's a lot of variability within health system. I mean, health of individual to population level. Yes, many people now in Australia, of course, looking back when we migrate to this country, in our life, we're having a lot of things that we're trying to interfere with our life. We're exposed to wars, we're exposed to economic degradations, we're exposed to challenges to do with our environment and other conflict. So that was free migration. Then we went to migration itself. During migration, actually, we have a lot of things that were happening there. We know people were dying because of others being ambushed, others, being killed deliberately by enemies. Some people that were crossing with using boats could also have issues within the sea, and then some died and some survived to come out. Now, when we came to Australia, actually, things become different post-migration. The factors that were affecting us from free migration and during migration are totally now different from the factors that are within forced migration. So we have settled it within the country. We are where you need to work. And if you have opportunities that you're working for and be able to get some money, then your life will change totally from the time when you're dealing with things to do with free migration. So of course, yes, I do agree with him that many of us are doing well. But now it's not about just you being well. It's about whether or not is your mental health, is it okay? Is your body okay in terms of what you're doing in this country? Are you feeling all right in terms of people that you've left back home? All these also interfere with you in this country, despite the fact that you escaped the war, you escaped disasters from other countries that you came from, but still we still have some issues. It depends where you are at, but what I do see, we don't have equal opportunities in this country or equal basis on how we're living. We are living differently, and the other people that are affected in different way altogether.
Okay, and I suppose one good thing about us is that as many of us have come from Africa and who lived in conditions that may not necessarily have been the best in terms of health, or we did not benefit from very good health infrastructure from young age, and were exposed to a variety of pathogens and viruses that may have affected us. But that has allowed us to build a pretty strong immune system. When you look at how life is in Australia, where everything is clean everywhere, that has also its consequences. The body doesn't get to develop a very strong immune system. That this sort of things sort of affect health in general for migrant.
Yeah, yeah, of course, it affects health. Health depends on where you grew up and your age. For example, somebody from Senegal, may die at the age of 50 years, whereas the life longevity in this country, actually, a man could go up to 85 years. So if you think about that variation, then you would tell exactly, the pathogen and other things that we have genetically may also affect you here in this country, and you may not reach 85 years. Some of us may not go to 85 years unless you are born in this country, because environmentally that will sustain your life, and your life where you grew up actually will determine how long you would go. You
Yeah,
see, some of
yeah,
us this who come from this country when we are old actually will die at some age, maybe 60, 50 years, because the past determine your health now.
that's right.
And people who are born here actually may have longevity more than people who migrate from the other country. I would just give another example in terms of COVID-19. So we came from Africa. Some would assume that we have strong genes. Now, in this country, we are all equal, whether you're white or black. You know, we are in lockdown. You go out, you get infected, you can easily die. You know, so our genes actually are just human genes. They're all the same, but it depends on how you brought up environmentally and how you live throughout your life.
Yeah, because I guess that's sort of a double-edged sword. In one way, being exposed to all these environmental factors may have given you a very good immune system, but it may also have overworked your system to some extent.
Yeah, that's true.
And that also affects you negatively, so you won't be able to live as long as
Yeah,
born and growing up here may have. And I suppose we I mean, we all have that feeling that we're pretty strong, and that's talking about African Australians, for example, for things or communicable diseases. We think that we may have strong immune system, but that not necessarily the case, is it? Is it?
yeah. That's not the case. It depends with your immune system. It varies. When you come to Australia, things change. And as
Yeah,
you get older, the past dictates your health. You know, the past dictates your health. It's not just a straight line that when you come, to good country at
yeah.
the age of 35 years, then you would think that you will go beyond 90 years. The probability base. It depends on how you are brought up, the environment that you got exposed to. Yeah.
Another thing that I would like to mention here, in my own personal observation, which is not scientific in any way, but I've seen that a disease such as high blood pressure or disorder tends to affect a lot more women, African women, than men. I don't know whether that is something that you have also noticed or not. If so, why is that the case?
Well, I would, yes, it's about men and women now, but I would just say generally, all of us, most of young men and young women are suffering equally from high
Yeah,
blood pressure. But it goes down to how you maintain your health, the stress that you are in. Some of these mothers actually bear a lot of burden.
yeah,
They take care of the kids. They're always, trying to sustain the whole family. Our African life.
hmm,
You know, she doesn't have time for exercise. She doesn't have time for to go out and have friends, friendly discussion with other friends outside. Especially that most of them are isolated. There are no activities that encourage them to go out. I'm seeing now in this young generation that is coming up, they are quite adaptive, to Australian way of life. I
hmm,
see many people that going out at the park, having exercise a day, running up and down, going to gym, which is quite a good sign to all of
yeah,
us here. But mothers actually they bear a lot of burden in terms of what is skills that is facing them now at the family level and taking care of the kids and a lot of things and work also is quite stressful. And by
yeah,
the way, the type of work that they do here, they don't have they don't earn a lot of income. Most
yeah,
of them work in the hotel as cleaners or aged care, and whatever that they get actually is not sufficient. Majority of them, have mortgages, and they also support people back at home and here. You find, there's specific population that's well affected. And I do agree with you, mothers are really suffering in this country. But it's high time that we talk about their freedom, we talk about and how they can handle issues so that, their health also should be supported in terms of what is facing them at
yeah.
this level here.
Well, yeah, certainly the role of uh, women in our families is one that is quite significant, and they tend to bear the brunt of the actual running a family, organizing a
Mm.
household more than perhaps the male counterpart. But that's another topic for another day. Let's talk about perhaps diet as well. Do you think that plays also a key role in terms of health? Because obviously, when we come to Australia, one of the things we notice very quickly is that the food is very different, and we grew up with different food. They like one of my friends who used to say, you come to Australia, you start eating herbs. We call it majani. We don't eat majani back home. All these salad things and all that. So that
Yeah,
does that affect? I'm sure that affects health as well, doesn't it?
yeah. I think I would talk about what I studied before. In Africa, we have different places. In Africa, it's not just it's not one country. It's a
Yeah,
continent.
that's
You
true.
know, in where I came from South Sudan. It's more of savannah. It's quite hot. It's really very hot. And if you go to northern part, it's also desert. Now, if you talk about South Sudan and you talk about Kenya, part of Kenya, is island. It's just its environment is just like environment here in
In Melbourne,
Australia.
yeah,
Yeah, it's quite cold. Now, talking about cold area and hot areas, people who are in hot areas eat a lot of fats, and of
and you're
course,
okay with that.
the
So
fat,
they,
of course, the more you go fatter, the more your immune system goes down in terms of other diseases that are coming in terms of obesity.
yes,
You have excess of fat that is converting to glycogens, and if you have less insulin that is operating on such glucose, then it goes down to having diabetes. And that's why now, if you are seen as somebody that is quite big and with bigger stomach in Africa, there's a fright. You are seen as somebody that is quite rich. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, good, good. Yeah. level of stomach is a
Yeah.
good thing to
But
have.
when you come to Australia or maybe another Western world, there's a misery, It's as if, if somebody doesn't take care of his health, mentally it's not stable. Maybe something is affecting him, you
Yeah,
know. Being slim and, well balanced, project better health for yourself here.
that's
So,
right.
in terms of feeding habit, you know, our people take a lot of fats. They don't know how to regulate this fat. We had one study that we did in Jarwara Health Service. It was around two, 2000 and 2012. I was working as a program coordinator. We had Africans menu that we've designed and try to leave mothers, be able to cook, to cook those menus and try to balance, ingredients. But what we found out later on, they were using a lot of fat and salt. In this country, it may cause you a lot of problems because environmentally we're in different environment.
Mm.
Unlike when we're in South Sudan or in other African countries, that actually absorb or maybe regulate such intake of food in different way. Because of course, if you take a lot of fat, you need to work hard. You need to go out and work so that
Yeah,
you use that fat for energy.
that's
Like people who are living in hot areas would want actually to go out, or maybe those heat actually use up a lot of energy. So, but
yeah.
here it's totally different. So the food
It's
habit actually is a problem. Yeah,
absolutely, and I think the fact that in Africa, not everywhere, but in many places where it's quite hot, simply just moving around and the perspiration and the movement, it means that you are actually losing a lot of these toxins that would not accumulate in your body,
that's right.
and that's just a way of life. But when you get here, it's pretty much a sedentary life. You're most of the time in one place, and you drive everywhere you go. That walk thing is not
Yeah,
happening. If it happens, you probably just half an hour or 1 hour. While in Africa, every day you may actually walk for 3 4 hours, but sometimes
you're right.
even more.
Yeah,
So I suppose that also affect. But are people fully aware of all these changes, including, amongst other things, vitamin D, which, because the sun in Africa gives us all the vitamin D that we need.
yeah.
Here, it's a different story. And are people fully aware of these issues, and what should be done in case they are not, to be able to educate them and get them to attend to this?
Actually, that's why I established, Center for Migrant and Refugee Health, to be able to work closely with our people. It's not because of creating any other services that is quite unique or different from what is going on within the mainstream, but it's to work closely with the community and be able, to give them, education in terms of what they're getting in this country and what's lacking, and also to make it as a point of advocacy, from the community level to a government level. In this country, actually, communities are quite regarded highly in terms of what they produce and, in terms of this term of how they support the government. So if we have, community organizations that are well led at the community level, try to advocate, on behalf of the community, then, well, the government is quite receptive. They can support, they can try to link in and make sure that, people are helped. So, well, people are not aware. People are not aware of things that are going on within their body. Not everyone is aware of, how these social things interact with their health. They see health is quite distinctive, something separate. It's about disease and about the death. No, it's about your own feeling on how you perceive on daily activity, daily life, how you interact with other people, and how, you also see other things that are not part of your life would affect you indirectly. So we need advocacy, we need education to educate our people, especially in the area of cancers, diabetes, high blood pressure, and a lifestyle, obesity. Young people now, actually, you see most of our young kids, they are being affected, with the obesity. Most of them don't take time to go outside and do
Yeah.
some exercise, and then in long term actually may affect them.
Long term, there'll be a lot of issues. Let's take
Yeah.
another question quickly, as we got about 5 minutes left. The next question is, how much do migrants know about ways to mitigate the effect of non-communicable diseases, that is diabetes and high blood pressure, as an example, since these are rampant among them? What do you say about health literacy among African communities?
Yes, there's not much that they know. I would assume so because in terms of health literacy, the health literacy is quite low in our community. That most of migrants are not educated, and that affects them indirect on how they perceive and even in communication with GPs and doctors. It's quite hard to find someone who doesn't even understand the terminologies in just social activity, leave alone medicine or maybe other health terminologies. It's really quite hard. We've also witnessed now during COVID-19 that health literacy is really affecting people in terms of the myth and misinformation that are being given outside. They only hear things and then they capture them then to go and read in depth to understand what it is that COVID-19 is and how will it affect you or your family. So in terms of health literacy is quite low. We don't have we don't have much knowledge about health of us or maybe of other people outside there.
Okay, now for the time that we have left, let's try to sort of summarize this whole thing here. We're talking about health inequalities, health issues that affect us, and there are different levels of responsibility, starting from personal responsibility, family responsibility, community responsibility, and government responsibility. What would be your message, given what you know, given the sort of work that you do, and the experience you've built, the observations you've made, research you've done? What would be your advice to all those different levels to try to really make a difference and ensure we have optimal health for migrants and refugees coming to Australia, and African Australians in particular?
Thank you, Clyde. I think what I would say is that it's quite very important for each of us as a community to be able to take care about ourselves. All of us are important in one way or another as a community. Being an individual, you contribute to the economy of this country. You also contribute to the country and the people within the community. One thing is quite certain that in a way that we need to take care of ourselves. We need to listen to health advice. We need to work hard to make sure that we work collaboratively with other brothers that are working in the sector, that are working within the community, so that we have a better network and be able to leverage our community in terms of what is affecting us in this country, in terms of health and other things that are important. Because without us sitting down and realize that we have potential in this country and take care of ourselves, then it will be a very hard actually to bring up a second generation or third generation that will be well educated, well aware of what is affecting them in terms of mental health. My message is, listen to experts, listen to your sons and daughters that are working hard within the country or within this country to be able to access many services and work, as one community. We are all Africans, we are all Australian, we are all regionals. We are one unit in this country, but depending on where you come from and what you need to do in this country, it's important that we work as one unit, to be able to do something good for our community. Otherwise, I really appreciate you for the time and the opportunity that you've given me today and the people that are listening. Maybe we may have another session next time.
Absolutely. We will look into having other sessions next time, because health is very important. Health has no price. If you lose your health, life becomes pretty difficult, and in fact, life may end. So thank you very much, Mabor, for coming to African Knowledge to share your knowledge, your experience, your insight regarding health inequalities, health issues affecting migrants and refugees in general, and African Australians in particular. We would try to organize another session sometime later to talk more. Perhaps even we didn't talk too much today about COVID because it's just too much about COVID, and we're still affected by this another 3 weeks extension in Melbourne. I've got I'm over it anyway. But we will talk more about what needs to be done, what can be done to minimize the issues affecting people in relation to COVID in our communities. For those watching, we thank you for your time. We thank those who have commented and asked questions. As usual, we ask you to contact us if you have something important that you want to share. And I know there's now a lot more people contacting us, so we're starting to have that long list of people wanting to come to the show, which is good. And we'll do our best to make sure we can accommodate everyone as much as possible. We encourage you to like our Facebook page and share the video. We encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on that notification bell, both on Facebook and YouTube, so you get automatically notified when we are on air and everything else that we may publish. So thank you very much, John Cole, for your continued contribution to this platform. And for everyone else, stay safe and stay blessed. Thank you, Mabor. I'll see you again next time.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you. See you guys.
Bye. See you.